The experiment that you conducted yesterday on your partners was based on Glanzer and Kunit's 1966 zero position effect experiment. Okay, as you already know, participants in this experiment were expected to recall a list of words. So the aim of the experiment was to examine whether the position of the words on the list, whether it was presented in the beginning, middle, or end, would influence recall. Okay, and to see if there were two separate stores of memory. Okay, participants of this experiment in the original study were 240 U.S. Army enlisted males who were divided into two different conditions. The conditions weren't repeated on them; they were in two different conditions, which means that it was an independent measures design. Okay, condition one basically had the participants recall the words immediately after memorizing them or listening to them. Okay, and they had to go through free recall, which means that they could remember the words or record the words in any order. Okay, and in the second condition, the participants, after listening to the list of words, immediately had to start counting backwards from any given number for 30 seconds. And after these 30 seconds, they were expected to recall the words. Okay, the participants were randomly allocated to the two conditions. So the results. For condition one, the results were that participants were able to remember the first few words from the list and the last few words from the list the best. Okay, and this came to be known as the primacy recency effect. Primacy basically means that the first few words of the list will be remembered because over the course of the rest of the reading of the list, you're able to rehearse that information and store it into your long term. Okay? As opposed to recency, which deals with the most recent chunks of information that are in that list. Okay? Or that are in your now short term memory. Okay? So this is known as the primacy recency effect. You will remember the first few because you are able to rehearse and encode it into your long term, and you will remember the most recent ones because they are fresh in your short term. Okay, and this shows that there is a separate long term and short term. Okay, in condition two, because there was a distraction task, participants were only able to remember the first few words in the beginning of the list. Okay, but not so much the ones in the end of the list. We know that the short term memory has a duration of about 30 seconds, and the distraction task was for 30 seconds. So, because they were doing the distraction task and putting their attention and effort into doing the counting backwards, they were not able to rehearse the words from the last few words from the list, but they were able to rehearse and record and store the first few words into their long-term memory. So the recency effect here does not really play a role, okay? But the primacy effect does. So here again, you can see that there is two distinct components, which is the long-term and short-term. Words were encoded in the long term, but there was no short term because you were not able to pay attention and keep it and rehearse it to move it into the long term. Hence, information in the end of the list was forgotten. Okay, so the researchers concluded that when there are too many words for anyone to remember, the primacy effect results in the first words being recalled, and the recency effect results in the last few words being recalled, as I mentioned. Okay. Uh, so a lot of these have several different implications, okay? And we know that um, implication or application of a model is very important. So one example can be of newspapers or even storybooks, okay? The storybook or a story, any story starts with a good beginning and has a climax towards the end because these are the things that individuals remember. As for a newspaper, there's headlines in the beginning which captures people's eyes and they're able to rehearse it regardless of what they go through after. And advertisements as well. Advertisements on TV, you will find that the first few minutes are important or significant, and then there's the last few minutes, which is usually the punchline. Okay, so this is all based on human memory and the multi-store model, suggesting that there is applicability of the results and the understanding of memory and how it is stored from this research. Okay? So, what you're going to do with your partner is you're going to write a debriefing note. In this debriefing note, you need to briefly explain what the multi-story model is and what the experiment was. You don't have to go into as much detail as I did because your partner will listen to this lecture as well, but you will have to explain to them very briefly. Like this person is a lay person, okay, a common man, does not study psychology. Okay, and once you've done that, you're going to explain to them their results in relation to the results of the original experiment. So we're going to divide the word list into 3 different parts. Okay, the first 6 words will be the beginning, the second group of 8 words will be the middle, and the last 6 words will be the end. Okay, and you're going to check how many words first to begin with your partner got right in each condition. Okay, and then you're going to check how many of these words belong to the beginning, middle, and end. Okay, for both the conditions. And once you've been able to do that comparison, you're going to check whether they had the primacy and recency effect at all in both the conditions. Okay, and if they didn't, are there possible reasons why they didn't have these effects? That is what you will record and explain to them. Okay, one of the examples could be that some of us, through a list of 20 words, they probably paid attention only to the first 10. Okay, and that is why they were only able to remember words from the first few from the beginning. Okay, that's one explanation. That is basically your task for today. You will write it down first in paper or on your computer, and then you will call your partner on Teams, and you will record your debriefing of the experiment. Okay, all right.